Today is the 57th anniversary of Woodstock, when 500,000 youth gathered to peacefully protest against the Vietnam War. Here, siblings Daisy and Tim initiated, meeting Cindy, a gonzo journalist, loosely based on Peggy Clifford, a friend of Hunter Thompson. They all meet up again in Aspen, attending the underground nuclear fracking test. Thomas Benton, a fabulous graphic artist, created banners for the demo, including the slogan, "No contamination without representation." Flabbergasted that in exploding a nuclear bomb in an area of pristine natural beauty and the headwaters of the Colorado River required no legal due process. The Aspen protest crew loaded the banners into vehicles. Every legal effort to stop the detonation had failed. They truly believe they can play God, Benton exclaimed, his voice sharp with frustration. The bomb was scheduled to go off today. Cindy and Benton were in deep discussion, finalising the plan. For months they had been coordinating with Denver, Rifle, Glenwood Springs, even Los Alamos, distributing flyers and rallying support. The only hope they had was a promise. If enough people were physically present in the blast zone, they wouldn't go through with it. "We're headed to Battlement Mesa, Ground Zero," Cindy explained. "Project Realism is part of the Plowshare program, a so-called peaceful nuclear test program. It's being backed by Austral Oil Company, who claim nuclear energy can be used for non-military applications. The purpose of today's test, to extract natural gas locked deep in sandstone and shale." "How much is this insanity costing?" asked Tim. "Approximately 6.5 million, Cindy answered, now in full journalist mode. "They're calling it a carefully calculated investment. I'm calling my article Realism Roulette." Tim scoffed. "They're betting on radiation." "Incredibly, most of the locals are fine with it. They trust the government," Cindy continued. The group booed and jeered. Turning off the road, they picked up 2 portable radios from the core protest team before parking at the edge of the quarantine zone. Daisy was struck by the eerie beauty of the hills, covered in quaking aspens, their goldening leaves flickering in the wind, oblivious to the coming horror. The team unloaded Benton's banner, a red target with mysterious symbol in its bullseye. Daisy studied it. "Is it an aerial?" she asked Benton. He beamed. "Thank you for noticing. It's the variation of the Cross of Salam." "A what?" "A pontifical cross carried before the Pope, a symbol of authority." Benton's voice rose with conviction. "This explosion is an act against God. By carrying this symbol, we're not just resisting, we're claiming the moral right to stop it." Daisy was flabbergasted. "Wait, you're saying this is a holy war?" Tim interjected. Benton nodded, fire in his eyes. "Now is the time for the rising of a new power. This is the sign, the cross of representation." Daisy felt electrified, powerful. Tim grabbed 2 banners and held them high. Benton's words had touched the part of him that hated how grown men bullied, excited their desire without reflection. A surge of determination, inner strength coursed through the siblings' bodies. 40 minutes till blast off," the announcement boomed from the megaphone speakers placed at the top of high posts. Tim charged forward through the marching crowd, his body buzzing with adrenaline. "I can't just do nothing and watch another man in a suit destroy everything." His mind spiraled, the world narrowing to rage. Or was it sorrow? The protesters chanted, their voices shaking the air. "Stop the atomic blast! No contamination without representation." Other banners with slogans. "Realism may make you rich, but will our grandchildren have leukemia? And soon you will radiate baby." "We've got to stop this," exclaimed Tim, pushing his red papal banner vigorously higher, walking side by side with his sister. A cop attempted to stop them, then allowed them to march onward. 30 minutes till blast off." Concentrated around the entry stood the armed guards. Cindy demanded statements for the newspaper, while Benton led a covert team to breach the quarantine zone. "No contamination without representation," the demonstrators chanted. "We need to get inside the quarantine zone if we're going to stop this," Benton said, marshalling Moondance, Daisy, Tim, David and Isaac. He pulled out his portable radio. "Testing, testing." Static crackled. Standing by her brother, Daisy felt a mix of fear and determination, unified by a common goal. Picking up the pace, they ran along the flimsy fence. The moment they were out of view, it was easy to crawl under the barbed wire. "We're in," Benton radioed, dropping the wire he held in his hand. 20 minutes till blast off. Benton, can you hear me? Asked Cindy. The radio crackled. I'm not sure they're going to stop the test. She turned her attention to the guards, pleading. Laws are being broken. Legal promises. Public obligations. A thunderous announcement boomed across the hills. All unauthorized persons evacuate immediately. 15 minutes till blast off. We are in the quarantine zone, moving closer to ground zero, Benson exclaimed, red in the face and puffing. They have to stop it. You promised to stop this if civilians are in the blast zone. Cindy held her small recording device close to the guard's mouth. Her photographer snapped diligently. Do you have anything to say for the record? 10 minutes to detonation. The sheriff stepped forward. Sorry, folks. This is official business. You kids are breaking the law. Trespassing. You heard the announcement. Addressing the crowd, he added, Now get your friends out of here before it's too late. Benton, can you read me? Benton? Yes, Benton, copy. They're not going to stop. You need to get as far away as possible, urged Cindy over the radio waves. Daisy looked at her brother and gazed straight into the blue eyes she knew so well. The protest didn't matter. The bomb would go off anyway. Benton, Isaac, David and Moondance turned around and raced away from the site. 5 minutes to detonation. I've got to stop this. Tim bolted up the hill, getting closer instead of away from ground zero. Tim, no! Daisy screamed, running after him, scrambling over the top. They reached a vantage point overlooking the test site, surrounded by an electrified fence. A siren wailed. Daisy covered her ears. Please evacuate. 1 minute to detonation. Staring at the 12-foot wire barrier, Tim was catatonic, paralysed. Daisy grabbed his face, forcing him to meet her gaze. There's nothing we can do, she screamed. Tim's vacant eyes flickered black to life. 10. Pause. 9. Survival adrenaline bolted through their veins. Superpower focus. Legs. Run. 3, 2, 1. A deafening roar, the loudest freight train they had ever heard, rumbling underneath. The ground lifted beneath them, a ripple of raw power exploding through the earth, wavy under their feet. They collapsed, crawling toward their friends, screaming in terror. They really did it! Daisy opened her eyes, having no idea what she would see. Among the trees, moving in and out of the shadows, figures in buckskin, chanting, praying, weeping. Can you see them? She pleaded suddenly. She was getting cold and shaking uncontrollably. Can you see them, Moondance? I think you're in tit shock. Hey guys, I need to take Daisy back to the car. Daisy continued to mutter. Can you see them? There was no nuclear smoke plume. The mountain didn't blow off its top. But they had just experienced a nuclear bomb twice the size of Hiroshima explode under their feet. Demoralised and deflated, they walked back to the car. Benton's voice was heavy with grief. The Utes call this the place that burns. Their ancestors stirred in their graves today. Moondance gripped Daisy's hands. You saw them. You saw them. Daisy trembled. Taking a large slurp of vodka, Cindy lamented. Even though we didn't stop today's blast, our presence was not for nothing. Benton toasted, pouring the remains of the liquor down the hatch. We may not have been able to change the past, but we can shape the future, and we must fight for what is worth fighting for. Angels weep at the risk we are prepared to take. This zone has been out of bounds since 1969, but with expanding pressure to intensify fracking, along with political protocol shifting away from protection, there is talk of going back in. This is all about money. Question. What is a healthy water system worth? Let's head to the Senate, July 1970, to debate H.R. 471, the bill to return Blue Lake. Daisy, David and Mr. Cohen headed to the Senate office building to meet Bloom and Daisy's father, who had flown in from New York late the night before. The official building was unlike anything Daisy had ever seen, a striking blend of classical and modern architecture, imposing without being overbearing. Tall ribbons of dark glass alternated with white marble, suggesting colonnades, creating just the right sense of awe, power and reverence. Through intricate metal doors, they entered into a dramatic interior, high ceilings, lavish stone floors, sweeping down grand corridors. A stark contrast to the soft, round, warm pink adobe Daisy had grown used to. Benjamin Cohen checked his watch, urgently marching them upstairs and through the hallways. His briefcase swung, charged with purpose. They entered the busy committee room, walnut-panelled walls, marble wainscoting, bronze light fixtures, and a decorative plastered ceiling. Mr. Cohen headed toward the front to join his colleagues, while David, Daisy, Bloom found seats along the side. "Look, there's your father," said Bloom. Her dad was deep in conversation with a group of co-workers, standing straight as he shook hands with Mr. Cohen. A decade older than Ted, Mr. Cohen struck Daisy as a truly honourable mentor, strong, grounded, composed. Ted made his way over to them, pausing to greet associates along the aisle. Friendly and hostile emotions buzzed through the room. Nixon's promise to sign the bill into law if it passed the Senate inflamed political tensions. The pending anti-ballistic missile treaty was critical to many, and crossing Dempsey risked its collapse. "Look, there's Dempsey and his team of cronies all lined up to oppose this bill," Bloom whispered. They sat in orderly rows, power radiating. Senator Dempsey looked even older than Daisy remembered, glasses perched low, a sharp grey suit, white shirt and conservative tie, distinguished but diminished. A striking contrast among the suited white senators was a cluster of traditionally dressed men from the Taos Pueblo. They sat with composure, witness to the moment. Daisy studied the bold, hand-woven cotton blankets wrapped around them. "Look, their spiritual leader came," said Bloom. Daisy gasped. She remembered how much it meant to Hummingbird Dawn that their cacique be involved. A very old man, it was a powerful gesture that he had come to testify. His tribal duties were usually private, dedicated to prayer and spiritual ritual. 94 years old, he embodied the continuity of the 64-year fight for the return of Blue Lake, a sacred site revered like Jerusalem, the Vatican and Mecca. Born in 1875, Cacique knew an older disappearing world. His presence, a living memory, stood in contrast to the bureaucratic grind of the judicial process. He sat peacefully, radiating majesty. "Yesterday they met Nixon," Bloom continued, "and that meeting finally moved the president to declare his support for H.R. 471. She nodded toward Burnell and said, "Mr. Burnell joked, 'If Nixon is the great white father, Dempsey is the great white mummy.'" Daisy's lips curled in an amused giggle. "Good news, finally. The Pueblo has been waiting decades for the winds of change, months of presidential support, and this moment to align. Today's just a hearing," Bloom cautioned. "It's not decisive, and Dempsey's a formidable opponent." Questions scrambled through Daisy's mind as the chairman called the hearing to order, and the room quieted around them. Ted slipped into the seat next to Daisy and kissed her on the cheek. "Hi, good to see you," he said warmly. He wore a navy pinstripe suit with a colourful purple tie, a renewed glint in his blue eyes. He hadn't made up his mind about the bill, but as a silent witness he was fully present. Daisy suddenly felt very close to him, their minds stimulated and enthralled, wrapping around the same moment. "The committee will come to order," said the chairman. "The purpose of the hearing this morning is to consider legislation to amend the Act of May 31, 1933, providing for the convenience of certain lands in the National Carson Forest in New Mexico to the Indians of the Taos Pueblo. Copies of the legislation H.R. 471 and S750, together with reports from the various departments, will be inserted in the record." S750 is the counter-legislation Dempsey's pushing, Bloom clarified. "Dear Mr. Chairman," said another white man in a dark suit and tie. "They all look the same to me," thought Daisy. Walter Hickel, Secretary of the Interior, then began his statement. "We oppose the enactment of S750 and recommend the enactment of H.R. 471 as passed by the House and now pending before your committee." He emphasised at length the religious significance of the case. "One of the basic precepts of Pueblo philosophy and religion is that a way of life was established in the beginning by Mother Nature and the Pueblo's forefathers, and that things should be done as they were in the past." Daisy was fascinated. She knew this was a privilege, being here today to learn and understand. "Taos Pueblo shrines cannot be relocated," he stated. Without their sacred sites, their culture, which is their way of life, will die out. Religion and lifestyle are intricately woven. They rely on the clean water supply from Blue Lake. They depend on the area for game, wood for heating and cooking, timber for construction. A parade of men in suits took turns stating their cases, some in support, others opposed. Either HR 471 was the correct course of action, or the S750 amendment, which kept the land under government control while allowing Taos Pueblo ceremonial privacy, was the best compromise. David yawned. Daisy struggled to keep up, but her ears perked up when a man introduced as Russell E. Train, Undersecretary of the Interior, spoke. The land and the people are so closely tied together that it is what might be technically called a symbiotic relationship. The people, by their prayers and their religious function, keep the land producing, and the land keeps the people. We cannot understand why you won't take the money, Dempsey baited, his voice rising. He looked around the room, glasses perched at the end of his nose, projecting his professional wisdom. What is this value you claim to find in this land? Please, we would all very much like to understand. Each witness attempted to respond to Dempsey's insistent questioning and trifling detail as best they could. It was tedious, but Dempsey refused to let up. If the president gives back land, it paves the way for other tribal claims, an intolerable land grab from the U.S. government. I have a Navajo tribe now claiming Aboriginal title for 30 million acres. Are you suggesting I give it to every Indian who asks for their land back? Dempsey finally sat down, flushed and spent. Daisy looked to Bloom, raising her eyebrows, an unspoken acknowledgement that the senator had crossed into open rudeness. This is a unique situation, said Senator Hickle, standing to clarify the point. Each case must be dealt with individually, he emphasized. And no, this cannot eliminate the possibility that other tribes will make claims. But no amount of money can replace what this land means to the Taos Pueblo. Cacique remained composed, whispering soft chants under his breath. There's no reason the Pueblo needs 48,000 acres back. Dempsey rose again. This land is presently well managed. This was quickly disputed, with many examples of misuse by the Forest Service. Provide evidence, Dempsey insisted, as I very much doubt that any exists. His bias towards the Forest Service is so obvious, Daisy whispered. His eyes glimmer with the possibility of exploiting the land for profit through the lumber industry, Bloom added under her breath with a wry grin. It's a very difficult thing to settle a religious thing with money, Hickle argued. As they moved through the corridors, father and daughter entered a deep debate. Honey, you're clearly biased, not thinking clearly, led by emotion, Ted said. Daisy's cheeks flushed red. Don't let the men overwhelm you, Hummingbird's Dawn's voice rippled within. Law is law, Daisy. It exists to protect us. We must trust due process, Ted added. Daisy agreed in part. She was eager for the afternoon session and to hear the tribe's testimony. In her heart, she felt the white man's case was weak. The Bill of Rights guarantees religious freedom for all, she said. How can they argue otherwise? God is worshipped in a building. Daisy also understood that men like her father simply didn't comprehend why the tribe needed so much land. It's irresponsible that they won't take the money, continue their religion in private, and not limit access to government interests. It sets an unacceptable precedent, Ted concluded. Daisy wished her father could take peyote with Ravenfeather, then maybe he'd understand. Daisy loved debating with her dad. To outsiders, they looked like two passionate people arguing, but for them, it was art. Ted was more physical, his arms and hands energized, while Daisy's voice rose. They were worthy opponents, mostly good-spirited. Their sparring brought intellectual challenge, and they went deep. She hadn't realized how much she'd missed the intensity of it. Daisy, congratulations. You're developing a voice and an opinion. Law is the art of persuading others of the truth of things, Ted said, pausing as he ladled clam chowder from the hot buffet. That smells good, said Daisy. She hadn't eaten fish for ages. I still need more from you and this hearing to assess the full scope of this legislation. Dempsey is an honourable and respected Democrat. I feel he cares. Don't you? Ted continued. I believe he cares, said Daisy, about something very different from what the tribe values. They walked to an empty table in the cafeteria. The room was filling up rapidly as others from the hearing queued for food. Ted sat, his face drawn, not from lack of sleep, but from mourning. "Okay," he said tender-heartedly. "What do you mean?" Daisy sat opposite him. "The Pueblo people define value differently than we do." "Well, of course," said Ted. This was how he coped, a master at compartmentalising grief, diving into work and reason to keep the pain of his son's death at bay. She, like him, welcomed the distraction too. Finally, a few hours without tears. "We're an advanced, educated society. They're primitive. They live from the land." "What?" Daisy looked at her father hard, pausing to savour her inner steadiness, her authority. "Seriously, Dad, can you not hear how prejudiced, even ignorant, that sounds?" Ted nearly choked on his food. "Perhaps your mother's right. Maybe you have been brainwashed." "Who's been brainwashed?" she challenged. "Dad, I've learnt things. I've had my own insights. I may not have lived your late years, but maybe that's your burden. It blinds you to the new, or in this case, the ancient." "Fair point," he conceded. "Go on. What do we value that they don't?" "Our culture equates value with money, cash, gold, oil, gas. The Taos Pueblo doesn't buy into that. They value clean water, fresh air, thriving colonies of bees, community, people, creatures, all living things." "Come on, Daisy. That sounds like a bunch of fairy folk dancing around a lake instead of earning a wage. What are they doing up there anyway, so secretive? Are they naked or something?" He was exaggerating, performing for his daughter. Daisy saw a theatricality in her father she had never fully registered. "Don't mock their ceremonies. Imagine if I made fun of Father Conti handing out the sacrament. Wine as blood, wafer as the body of Christ. Sounds strange too, if it's not your thing?" Daisy raised her eyebrows and wrinkled her nose. "Be careful how you talk about your faith," Ted said protectively. That little nose pinch. He used to do the same as a boy until his father trained it out of him, along with his left-handedness. Shame crept in. "Can't you see how similar it is?" "No, Daisy, I can't." Ted's tone was serious, emotion suppressed beneath logic. "And while we're at it, why do they need 48,000 acres? That's a lot of land. If they don't even operate with money, how can they manage something as valuable as Carson National Forest?" Daisy paused. Her father was good, and many others shared his view. "Okay," she thought, "he sees this differently. Anger won't change that. This is the realm of law, facts, logic. If I want to change minds, I need more than emotion." It struck her how hard it was to translate tribal truths into structured legal arguments. "The forest arches are nature's cathedrals. Inspired by that grandeur, we try to mimic it. We chop down ancient trees to build steeples that climb toward heaven." The words flew effortlessly from her lips, but Ted's blank expression said it all. She had more work to do. "Are you suggesting God our Father is a tree?" He chuckled, making the sign of the cross, something he rarely did, betraying his Catholic upbringing. Then he slurped his soup extra loudly. "We will accept nothing less than the full return of the watershed," Bernal reiterated firmly. "Only in its entirety can we preserve the health of this valuable water source. And when I say valuable, I do not mean in monetary terms, but for the delicate, complex water cycle that brings clean, vital water to my tribe, preachers and humans alike." Daisy wanted to shout out in gratitude. How come no one else is calling out in praise? She calmed herself. This was no place for emotion. As an environmental artist, it is my job to explore the predicaments we face, then to express and communicate them in ways that can reach new audience. I became fascinated by this case as a means to investigate opposing ideals, money versus spiritual value. Religious merit wins over the knowledge we are interdependent. Our own health is bound to our environment. It's no coincidence that sacred sites all over the world in present day and stretching back into our pagan past was always around water, springs, wishing wells, where the water met the sea. I'm going to finish with a diary entry, Daisy's final diary entry. Dealing with her brother's death is a metaphor for our shared environmental grief. Grief can be transformative. the phoenix rising. Friday, July 12th, 1970, White House Hotel, Washington. I can't sleep. The city hums, frantic and restless. I need my thoughts to slow down, so I write. Journaling connects me back to myself, a conversation with the voices I once feared. Less than a year ago, I thought they meant madness. Now I know better. They are my wisdom. It takes me back to just before Woodstock, when everything cracked open. What if I could turn back time? Mrs. Holyoake, my favourite teacher, once told me not to linger in endless questions. Sometimes the bravest act is to stop thinking, to rest the mind. Today was hot, heavy, grief pressed down again, not only for Tim, but for humanity. People can be so cruel, life so brutal. I miss Tim. The ache grips my throat, tightens my chest. My body remembers him, his scent, his voice, his hugs. The Blue Lake hearing has been a strange gift. That I'm here at all still stuns me. It's demanding, but I feel myself stretching, sharpening, legal training by immersion. A part of me is waking up. I sense new control, tapping into an inner power I once doubted. I'm grateful for those around me, Hummingbird Dawn, Bloom, even Dad now standing beside me. He dreamt of Tim. I feel jealous. Why not me? He said he dreamt about Sam too, his younger brother. The ink steadies me as it flows. Loss breaks me open, and in that fracture I feel everything. Everything matters. Every moment. Dempsey and Connor were vile, circling like coyotes. Hard to watch, harder to argue against. Yet I'm fascinated by the process, how law and politics dance together. I never saw it clearly before. Giving back the lake is clearly the right thing to do. Some say it's about trust. Can the Pueblo treat us better than we treated them? I believe they will. Their spiritual leader travelled here at his own expense to testify, an honour lost to so many in the room. I saw truth, beauty, and righteousness. Where is the line between privacy and secrecy? Dad and I discussed sovereignty, the right to worship, to choose, to love. Respect for others begins with self-respect. Maybe that's why the Red Willow people make their long pilgrimage to Blue Lake each year, to affirm who they are and their bond with the sacred. Value exists beyond money. Each life has a purpose. Freedom isn't given, it's lived. The government warns us of chaos, but I'm not so sure. What is the Constitution meant to protect? Law without honour is just paper. I want to change that. I want to be the first female environmental lawyer. My way forward is crystal clear. Talking to Mum was like Tim at his worst. Desperation, clawing. I want to rescue her, but Naya warned me. I can't. Dad promised to take care of her. At the beginning of the hearing, Dad was hard, closed, but something shifted. A kindness has returned. Peace, almost? Perhaps grief has finally broken Dad's rage. Our big talk cracked something open. Tonight, alone in my hotel room, I watched a show about a magical nanny who talks to animals and solves problems with imagination. Optimism. The mind is magic. The earth is magic. I still feel guilty when joy rises, like mourning must be constant, or else I betray Tim. That's why I can't go home. I drown in Mum's sorrow. I pray she finds her own transformation, or the loss will devour her. Dad admitted his part in Tim's wounding. Now he must forgive his father to forgive himself. Trauma is the human chain. Hurt people hurt people. Instead of healing together, we compete over suffering. When will it end? Real control comes only from within. I'm a hippie, a lawyer-to-be. I want to give legal standing to nature itself, to grant rights to rivers, to mountains, to animals, to those who love them, all things equal. It feels simple yet radical. White magic, fairy wisdom, Hummingbird Dawn's guidance, even the nanny's imagination. Now I need to be close to Tim. He's fading. I feel him dispersing. We must finish what we started. The mountain must be returned. Some things are worth fighting for.